All right. Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday night at 7 o'clock. So, you know what that means in this world. It is our weekly conversations with Commodores. And I am so pleased that this evening's guest is Mrs. Beverly Brothers. Good evening, Beverly. And thank you for making some time for us tonight.
Thank you, Bernard. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I suspect most everybody who's going to chime in and watch or watch us live or watch us later, y'all know who this lady is. She is currently, I believe, the longest tenured employee at McGugin. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, but it also makes me feel awfully old.
Oh, no, it is. Guys and gals, I know that if you have ever needed a campus mom, a mom away from home, Mrs. Brothers has filled that role for you at one point or another. And Beverly, we got folks that are rolling in: Mark Matlock, Gary Rogers, uh, and JJ June Jakes.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's we could be here all night just asking you to to tell us all of your roles over the years at McGugin, but instead, why don't we start with a little bit of a backstory for folks who may not know where you grew up, what town, and how you made your way to Nashville. Why don't you share a little bit of that to start with?
Well, I was born and raised right here in Nashville. I attended my very first Vanderbilt football game when I was about a year old. My daddy was a huge Vanderbilt fan, and we went to the Tennessee Vanderbilt football game. I went to Glencliff High School. After I got out of school, several years later, I got married and moved to Clarksville, Tennessee, and raised my boys in Clarksville. We moved here. My husband wanted them to go to Brentwood Academy, so we moved back to Nashville when they started into Brentwood Academy, and that was in 1983. And I had been working in the football office at Austin Peay for 3 years, and the coach there, Emory Hale, was a real good friend with George McIntyre. And Jeff and Jody had been coming to Vanderbilt's football camps for several summers. So Coach Hale called Coach Mack and told him we were moving to Nashville, and if anything came open in the athletic department, that I would love to come to work there. And that was in July of 83. And in August, I had my first job at Vanderbilt. I was helping Katie Sue Ford in the as a receptionist. And about a month after doing that, the girl that had been working in football recruiting took another job. So Coach Mack asked me if I would want to come to work there. So the rest is history. I worked in football. That was in 83. I did that until 1990. And then I went to work with Lucy Jones in the ticket office. And then I went to work in men's basketball. I worked with Jan Van Bredekov for 3 years. 2 years. When I was in the ticket office, and they called me one day and said that the secretary in men's basketball office went to lunch and called and said she wouldn't be back. So that left them without a secretary. And they asked if I would come and work just until they could get somebody to come in and take the job. 2 years later, I walked in Dan Van Bredekoff's office and I said, Coach, I've enjoyed working with you, but it was for 2 weeks and not 2 years. And Brad Bates had taken over as associate AD for internal operations, and I went to work for him. So I was working for Brad and compliance and facilities. And then when Gordon Gee came in and got rid of everybody, I lost all 3 of the people that I was working it was 3 people that I was working for at the time. He got rid of all of them. So I went back to work in the football office, and that was in 2004. So yeah, I've had 17 different offices in my time at Vanderbilt.
Wow. Wow. Well, when I came to school in the fall of '86, that was Watson Brown's first uh, school year, his first season.
Mhm.
And that's when I found you and found JJ and all of you guys. And
Yep.
speaking on behalf of countless football players, basketball players, and other student athletes who you came across, it was so heartwarming. It was so nice to just know that if there was an issue, if there was something that needed to be dealt with right there, whether you were on the front lines or in communication with parents, you guys were there.
Yeah.
I know that that made the parents feel good too, because without that campus connection, not just from the student athlete side, but from the parent side, without that, it makes life a little bit more stressful, a lot more stressful, I should say.
That's true. Yeah.
And then you had a couple of boys come through. Jeff was a few years behind me, and Jody, I think, is several years. So I wasn't.
No, Jody's a year older. He went to Austin P.
Okay. Well, I knew that with me playing quarterback and Jeff also playing quarterback, we were in the same room together with Coach Christophel and Coach Brown.
Right.
But I got to spend some time, at least one season, with Jeff. But just you being there, it's one of those things that it's so very hard for me to communicate it, but it is. And oh gosh, all these comments, Beverly, I have to pause my horrible description and just read to you what some of these guys are having to say.
Oh gosh.
Jim Aguiano says you're just
Well,
simply the very best.
oh, sweet. Thank you.
David Kropp says to ask you, okay, we're going to get to that. He says to tell you hello. We're going to get to what the boys are up to later. Let's see. And let's see. I think, oh, and Jay Fishesher was just, he had some very kind things to say, and that his parents truly loved you.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Well, Beverly, I know that depending on the year, depending on the coach, and depending on the sport, your roles, as you've described, changed all the time.
Yeah.
But what did not change was your dedication to the program, to the school, to the athletics department. And just going back to the first couple of years, you were with Coach Mack for a couple of years before he departed.
Right.
Talk about those first experiences for you. And then what was it like when Coach Mack left and then Coach Brown came in?
When I was working with Coach Mack to begin with, I was in recruiting, and of course, gosh, back then they didn't have computer. Well, they had a computer of sorts, but every letter that was sent out to recruits was hand typed. I would type it, I would go make copies and mail them all out. It was just crazy, but it was just so much fun. And I worked with Gene DeFilippo, who was just absolutely the greatest guy. Gosh, he's gone on to be AD at several different schools. But it was just such a family. All the coaches were just wonderful. And then Coach Mack's secretary left, and I took the job as his secretary. And it was just great. I grew up with football all my life. My dad coached, my brother played. So as my father-in-law would call us, we were ballaholics. And we went from one sport to another. And I just loved it. We went to of course, my family came to all the football games, but we went to the baseball games and the basketball games. And it was a great atmosphere for my boys to grow up in.
Well, it was certainly a special time, not just in the 80s, when depending on the year, different sports or different teams had more success than others. The basketball team seemed to be the main sport having success on the men's side with Barry Booker, Barry Goheen, Frank Cornell, Will Purdue. I could go on, the Bomb Squad, and all those are just incredible finishes. But I know that you and JJ and others have some awesome behind the scenes stories from traveling to New York or traveling out of town. And you shared some good ones with me. So I want you to just share a couple of the more memorable ones that you really just kind of stick in your mind.
There was one trip that we laugh about it to this day. We played at Syracuse, and I didn't go with the team. I went up later. So Katie Sue Ford, Lucy Jones, and JJ picked me up at the airport.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't remember who was driving. It was probably JJ, but I don't know that for a fact. We were going back to the hotel, and we drove and drove and drove, and we kept driving down this country road, and we saw this big fire up on the hill. And 5 minutes later, we come across the fire again, and we're just driving, and we can't figure out where we are. We came to a sign that said, "Welcome to Canada." We decided we were lost.
You think? You think?
Yeah, so we turned around and went back the other way and stopped at an American Legion.
Mhm.
And me and Lucy Jones got out and knocked on the door, and they opened up the little panel. And I said, "I'm sorry, we're lost. Can you help us find our way back?" And I gave the name of the hotel, and they
Sure.
let us come in. And
Uh-huh.
you're not allowed in the American Legion unless you're a member.
Right,
They let
right.
us come in, and Lucy said, "We're going to get killed. We're going to get killed right here." Old man shooting pool and smoking and drinking and
Mhm.
carrying on. But they finally got us, gave us a map and put out the directions so we could get back to the hotel. And we laughed all the way back after we realized we weren't going to get kidnapped.
Right, right. Well, isn't it amazing those type of adventures? You didn't have the cell phone technology, you didn't have all
No.
those things. Now, if you get that lost, it really is on you. But back then,
Yeah.
yeah, but back then, there were a lot more adventures like that, a lot of
Yeah.
stories. But
We knew we were in trouble when we saw the Canadian sign.
yeah,
That
do
wasn't
you,
good.
do you remember what year it was or who the head coach was at the time?
It was Jerry DiNardo was the coach.
Huh?
It was Jeff's. Let's see. It was 1991.
Okay.
Jeff was playing, and the funny thing was, I went up on the plane. Joe B. Wyatt was with us, the
Mhm.
chancellor.
Mhm.
When we got off the plane together, there were my girls standing there waiting for me, and whoever was supposed to pick him up was late. So
Mhm.
here's the chancellor of the university waiting for his ride, and we bebopped down the hallway of the airport and go on our merry way. Of
The
course, we realized where we were headed, but
Well, did you ever tell this story to Coach DiNardo?
we probably did, yeah. And
As long as you guys didn't miss any meetings or anything,
oh no,
sure.
no, no, no. We got back in plenty of time to go in.
Well, Beverly, Jim Arnold says to tell you hello and says that you are awesome. Now,
Oh,
let's
thank you.
I know that you guys, you and Miss Jones, JJ, all of you guys worked so hard. You had so many hours. You had so many
Yeah,
responsibilities 7 days a week.
yeah,
Putting out, with if it was a home game, you had ticket responsibilities. If it was a away game, you had ticket responsibilities. You had communications. And I don't think any person who isn't working inside the offices really can appreciate just how much you guys do. But I'll say this, no matter how hard the work was, no matter how long the hours and how late it was you were coming home, your enthusiasm was just infectious. Because anytime a football player or a student athlete or anybody connected with the program had to come by your desk or any of the administrative offices going to meetings or whatever it was, my recollection, there was never a down moment. There was never something that was so stressful going on within your offices that it bled outside of the offices, meaning you gave off such great spirit, such enthusiasm. And that is so, it's never mentioned, but it's so big on how a positive influence and impact it is on the rest of the program. So I wonder if you guys ever either talked about that or outsiders have ever communicated that to you guys.
Well, somebody asked me not too long ago how in the world I stayed, because I will start my 38th year in September.
Mhm.
They said, how have you stayed here so long? And I said, I couldn't have if I had not enjoyed what I did.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed my work. And to be honest, it was fun to work in football and basketball. And I've worked all the baseball regional and super regional tournaments. And, and I've worked with bowling, and of course they won national championships. And I've just worked with so many of the different sports, and it's been fun. It has.
And I think that, and tell me if I'm in the right place here. Your love of sports certainly contributes to your enjoyment of what you do every day.
Right.
And I would think, based on that and having your boys come through, or at least Jeff come through the Vanderbilt program, getting to know all of these student athletes, I'm going to call them kids because frankly, they're just young. A lot of them are a little more developed emotionally, et cetera, than others, but they're not out in the real world. They're in the what I'll call the bubble of the sports department, the athletics
Right.
department. So you get to know their personalities, you get to know
Oh,
their
yes.
families, and the way that you have always treated them as yours, as if they were the same blood relative, brothers, family. That really shows. It really does. And some more great comments. JJ said she would not have traded her time at Vanderbilt for anything.
Right.
And let's see. Oh, there's too many comments coming through. I'll get to them in a minute. But Beverly, what was it about? Let me ask it this way. During the years you're with the football department, what time of the year is most fun for you? What days of the week have better enjoyment for you?
Of course, the season was the most fun. And I think Fridays was the most fun day because you'd work so hard all during the week to get everything ready for the game.
Mhm.
Friday, the alumni would come in, and you would walk out to go to lunch or whatever, and the street, Jess Neely, would be packed with Vanderbilt fans and with the opposing fans, and it was just a lot of excitement around. And I enjoyed the recruiting time too. That was fun because that's when you did get to meet the families. And you were talking about maturing. It was so much fun to see a kid come in as a freshman and then to watch him when he graduated and see how the 4 years or 5 years had changed him in a great way. And now, my gosh, so many of them are out in the business world and just doing great things. So it's been fun.
I bet this time of the year can be a little emotional for you when graduation rolls around and yet another class of student athletes have come and graduated through.
Yeah.
It's like each year you're sending your kids off into the real world.
That's right. And the month of June, with all the COVID stuff, that's our big official visits month.
Mhm.
So we've got a lot of visits planned, and it's been hard this year because the kids couldn't visit campus.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be fun to have them come in again.
All right, without giving away any secrets, I'm not going to ask you about recruits. I want to ask you about what's going on at McGugin. Are you seeing lockers being put in and all kind of good stuff? Give us a little preview that you're allowed to tell us. Give us a tease here.
Well, I feel like I'm in a dentist office because I hear drilling 24 hours a day. It's awful, awful. But the locker rooms are fantastic. Oh my gosh, they're going to be so nice. And they're building. Now, I've not been in the stadium because we can't go in right now because they're doing so much work over there, and because graduation. They've set up for graduation for 2 or 3 weeks now because we had 2020 graduation, back at the end of April.
Right.
And
Right.
21 graduation is this weekend, but they're redoing the berm area and putting in seating there, and uh, they're they're just redoing everything. They've repainted all of our offices, and they moved all the recruiting staff to one area, so they're redoing their offices now, and new furniture, and it's just every coach that comes in, and I mean, I can certainly understand, has, they know what they want.
Mhm.
That they have their own needs, their own way of wanting to set up office space, and it's been fun. It's been exciting.
Well, tell us a little bit, give us a little insider knowledge about dealing with Coach Lee and the new staff, and then also having so many former players are
Yeah,
on the current staff. How cool is that?
that is when Coach Lee first got there, and he met with all of us that were there, and I told him, I said, Coach Lee, the hardest thing I'm going to have to learn is not to call you Clark, because I was there when he played. And he was Clark before he became Coach Lee.
Now, let me ask you this. Is it true? I've heard rumors that when he first came on to McGugin after he was named coach, you sat him down and said, look, coach, I was here long before you, and I'm going to be here long after you're gone. This is how it's going to be. And you're going to it wasn't anything like that.
No, I didn't know. It wasn't like that at all.
No, of course I'm teasing. I know. But what's it been like? How's the mood? What's the spirit like around the offices?
Oh, they're all so excited. And I laugh and tell every one of them, I think, are younger than my oldest grandson.
Mhm.
So, it's crazy. I get older every year and they get so much younger, but some of them have had their children in the office. And I said, I just love to hear how the little voices giggling and running
Uh-huh.
around, but the coaches are really excited. The players are excited.
Mhm.
It's been great. Spring practice went really, really well. And we're all really looking forward to it. It is great to have Norval McKenzie back. He was always one of my favorites.
Mhm.
So Norval, and of course, Joe Bond stayed on from the
Mhm.
other staff. And it's fun when the players are on
You
the
know,
staff again.
those fellas, while I don't know them personally, I certainly follow them on social media. And if their social media presence is any indication about what they're like in real life, it must be a real treat to see those fellas around the McGugin Center at
It
times.
is. It really is. And uh, Coach Lee he's just such a Vanderbilt guy. He's so smart, and he knows what he wants out of the Vanderbilt program. And I truly, truly think he's going to get it done. He's working hard.
Well, the enthusiasm from the coaching staff and within the McGugin coming out is certainly there, and it certainly kindled or rekindled spirits amongst the former football players and alums. But what I'm quick to also recognize is we haven't played a single game. We haven't gotten onto the gridiron. We're just building the momentum, and have been since December when Coach was named,
Mhm.
and it'll go through this fall. But frankly, until we see the results on the field, I think there's a lot of guarded optimism. I don't
Right.
know if that's a I don't know if that's a proper term. That's my term. But whoever's in charge of sharing photos of the progress of what's going on at McGugin, give them a little elbow tomorrow. Tell them we need some more photos. We're anxious to see what's going on.
Okay.
Well, Beverly, let's step away from McGugin and Jess Neely for a minute and tell about Jody and Jeff and their experiences in college and what they're doing these days.
Well, Jeff he was athletic director and head football coach at Nashville Christian here in
Mhm.
Nashville, but he has stepped out of the athletic director's role. He's in administration. So he's director of school operations, but he's still coaching. He can't give up coaching. And he said he might win the girls. He's got two daughters. One of them graduates this year, and the other one is a freshman. He said maybe in 4 years when Charlie graduates, he'll just stay in administration. But he he when he first got out of Vanderbilt, he didn't want to go into coaching. He wanted to go into the business world.
Mhm.
Well, that lasted about 6 months, I think. And then he just, well, one night Carlton Flatt called me and he asked what Jeff was doing. And I told him he was working for a marketing firm in Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, do you think he would want to go into coaching? And I said, I really don't think so, but you need to ask him. So he called and Jeff called me within an hour and said, Mom, I'm coming home. I'm going to go coach with Coach Flatt over at Brentwood Academy. So,
Wow.
and he hadn't stopped. He went from there to Christ Pres, and then he started the football program at Pope John Paul in Hendersonville. It was a new school that was opening, so they called and hired him as the head football coach there. And then he went from there to Nashville Christian, and he's doing great. He's doing super. Now, Jody went to Austin P. He was playing football and he was running back punts, and he got hit in the head and had a neck injury and was paralyzed for a little bit, not anything like life-threatening or anything. But the doctors said no more football for him. That didn't sit well with him. But he's helped Jeff coach just about everywhere he's been, and he was coaching middle school at St. Joseph's in Madison for several years, but now he's teaching at St. Bernard's right there at Vanderbilt.
Oh, very good.
And he does filming for Jeff now on Friday nights. So
he's real close to you then.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, what's a typical Friday night for you these days, or during the football season? Where in the state can we find you?
Wherever Nashville Christian's playing. I go to, now last year I didn't go to all the away games, but
Sure.
because some of them were over in Memphis and Jackson, but I go to all the home games. And like I said, my granddaughters are playing volleyball, so I go watch them in the fall. And Jody has two stepsons. One is he's graduated now from Bellarmine in Louisville. The other one is at UT, but he doesn't play sports. He plays golf but he's not on a sports team. But
wait. Did I hear you say UT?
Yeah, I did.
Do we need to delve into that, or should we just keep going past?
No, we just let that go.
Okay.
Jody said he will buy an orange shirt when he graduates, but not until then.
Well, Beverly, let's go back to Friday nights on campus, or Fridays on campus, home games. Okay. During my years, we would stay downtown, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was to get off campus. There's too many distractions. Right. So let's talk about the logistics of that and how all that comes together on a Friday when it's a home game.
Now there are so many distractions downtown. We don't want to go anywhere near downtown. Mm-hmm. We stay at the Marriott right there on campus, and it's so convenient. The kids can walk down there. Used to we'd rent 4 or 5 buses. They would take everybody on Friday evening downtown, and the traffic and with everything else and with all the people down there, it was just not feasible to do it. So now we stay at the Marriott. They walk over on game day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, with Franklin's staff and with Coach Mason's staff for a while, they would take buses and pick them up and bring them around to Jess Neely, and then they would have the Commodore walk down to the stadium on Saturday mornings.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's back in the day, in the late 80s, downtown was not anything like it is now. It was actually quite seedy. There was just a few places that you didn't want to be seen down there. But there was 1 or 2 nice hotels. I don't remember if it was a Lowe's or what it was. I can't remember
where you stayed either. We've stayed at so many. I can't remember. It might have been the Renaissance.
It might have been. But that's the easy part. Being in town, you're not coordinating flights, trips to the airport, the transportation from the away airport, and then the walkthroughs and all that stuff. I know after a while, for all of these away games, when you've been to one, let's say, I'm just going to pick one, LSU, you probably have the same contacts, people at the different cities. But when you're putting all of that together, that itinerary, that's got to be, even when it's a repeat game, you still have a lot to do. So how far out, I guess my question, how far out do you start planning for the particular home away games?
Well, as actually JJ was the one that did all of the advanced planning and all that kind of stuff when we were there together. And now they have football operations people that do all that. But we have already started planning our hotel visits for next year, not this coming season, but getting hotels set up for the following season.
Well, on behalf of Paul Morgan and anyone else wanting to go to the Hawaii game, who and when do we need to contact folks in the athletics department about those reservations?
I know I talked to Paul the other day. Gosh, I really don't know. Now, Casey Stengel is the director of football operations, and she's the one that's working with hotels. So they could contact Casey, and just get maybe on a list. As far as I know, nothing has been set for Hawaii yet.
Well, she's pretty new into her job. We'll give her a few moments.
She came over from baseball, though. She
Right.
Operations.
Oh no, I'm very familiar with her work. I follow the Vandy boys very closely. I'll give her a couple of months, and then I'll hit her up for some
that might be a good thing to do. Maybe once even the fall camp starts, then that will give her a little bit of a breather to.
That's true. Well, Beverly, we're getting close to the end of our chat, and I sure appreciate you sharing some of your memories with us and some of your just experiences. But I don't want to get out of here without you sharing, I don't know, just what's the vibe like? Different coaches, different, you've been under so many different administrations, is what I'll call it. And I know every coach has a different personality, a different style. And I'm not going to ask you to compare them or tell me who's best, who's worse. You've already hit a little bit about Coach Lee. I want to know a little bit more about my coach, Coach Brown. JJ shared a little bit. I also know there's some stories that can't be told here tonight. I'm not going to get into those. But what was it like? Take us back to the fall of '86, to the best that you can recall. Coach Mack is gone. It's now a homecoming. Coach Brown, everyone knows he's the quarterback who ended up helping beat Alabama in '69, hometown hero, Clarksville. And thank you. But him coming home was really a homecoming. It was a big deal at the time. There was a lot of celebration. What, if anything, do you remember about those times?
Gosh, oh Lord, I can't remember yesterday, and now you're asking me about 1986. Those were such fun ball games. We lost a lot of games, to be quite honest, but we won some good ones too. And there wasn't so much to do in the city of Nashville. I mean, you didn't have the Titans and the Predators and soccer, and I mean, everybody came out to the football games. And it was just so much fun. The stands were packed, and it was a great situation. It was. The coaches were wonderful. I love it.
Do you remember the home win in '88 against Florida, and we wore those awful yellow jerseys?
Yes.
And with all due apologies to Coach Shepard, who I think either picked out those jerseys or still loves them, they were the worst. Those jerseys were terrible.
We called them mustard yellow.
Oh, we had another name for them as well.
I'm sure.
Well, let's talk about Roy Kramer. He was
Uh,
our AD back at that time
yeah,
period. And I've got a funny story I'll share in just a minute, but what was your recollection about working with Coach Kramer?
he was the best. One thing I remember so much about Coach Kramer, when the basketball team was going to the NCAA tournament the first year,
Mhm.
we had been to um, the SEC tournament, and we got home from, this was when I was in basketball. We had gotten home from the airport at midnight, went straight to McGugin Center because we had to start doing ticket sales for the NCAA tournament. We were playing in Arizona. We had gotten word that we would be in Tucson. He came to the ticket office with us. He ordered pizza, and we all sat and ate pizza and worked on tickets. And he was right there with us anytime we had to do any work. We left there at 4 o'clock that morning, and he had been with us the whole time. He is absolutely the most wonderful man. And we were excited when he got the job as SEC commissioner, but boy, did we miss him.
He really was a leader,
Yes.
whether he was coaching back up in Michigan or wherever he was. He really just accomplished so much.
Yeah.
My real quick story is, the UT game was always Thanksgiving week each year back in the day. And so we stayed on campus for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go home. We had the weekend before was an off week, but we stayed home. I mean, stayed on campus. So we had Thanksgiving meal in Branscombe. I
Right.
think it had to have been my freshman year. So we were in these, the long tables, and Coach Kramer's got a carving knife and a fork in his hand, and he comes up to me. I didn't know he knew my name. I'm just a freshman quarterback. I'm red-shirted. He taps me on the shoulder. He says, "Nomberg, you're a quarterback. I know you can carve this turkey." I'm like, what, how does that qualify me to do anything, much less pour water? Well, anyway, there was more than one turkey, of course, and I just muddled through it. But I don't know, it was just funny to me that he knew who I was, and how somehow being a quarterback equated to having the ability to carve a turkey, which I
Right.
certainly didn't.
Maybe he thought you had good hands.
I guess so. Well, Watson did give me a job as a holder later on, so maybe there was something
There you go. It all started because you could carve a turkey.
Well, there you go. I didn't think about that. So I want to thank Coach Kramer, at least for that, allowing me to do that. Well, Beverly, before we get out of here, I want you to kind of, this is an unfair question, but I have to ask, what does it mean to you to have worked, coming on your 38th year, in a school or at a school that you love so much, at a program that you care so deeply for, with student athletes who you clearly have loved over the years? What does all that mean for you?
Well,
I'm sorry, I knew it would be
it
an
means
unfair
a
question.
lot. And the hardest thing is, I know I've got to retire, and that's going to be hard. But all good things must come to an end. So, but it's been wonderful. I've enjoyed it so much, and I've made so many good friends. And it's so fun when these guys come back in and give me a hug. To be quite honest, some of them I can't remember their names, but the other day when Paul Morgan called, oh my gosh, it just brought back such memories of when Paul and Ricky George and Coach DiNardo and all of them were there. And it's fun. Norman Jordan calls every once in a while, and I talk to Storm and Norman, and I can just see him and Whit Taylor in that Tennessee football game that we won. And it's just, I've just got some wonderful memories. I really do.
Mrs. Brothers, it may not be that you can remember every one of the names, because there's literally thousands, but they all remember your name, and they all remember what you did for them back in during that time.
Oh, well, that's sweet. Thank you.
Well, it's not just lip service. We all you're probably going to come close to setting the record for the number of views. I promise you. Billy Smith, one of the Keystone Cops, says to tell you hello.
Yep.
OJ Fleming is in here and watching. Let's see who else is there. And I got news for you. These folks who are going to be coming by here, who are watching it now live or may watch it on replay, there's a whole lot of hugs coming your way when they get to campus. I can assure you that.
Good.
So we don't want you to retire anytime soon. If we need to have a little talk with Coach Lee, you just let us know, and we'll make sure that you're there for as long as you need to be there.
Oh, well, I mean, they're not pushing me out or anything. I just know that, you know, there's the time's coming, but that's okay.
Don't they know that you're the person who A, knows where all the bodies are buried?
Well, that's true.
And B, is you're the memory. You are the memory of the program for almost 40 years. And you're the stability in the program is really what it amounts to. So on behalf of, let's see, Christy Houck says to tell you hello. And I had a wonderful conversation with Christy a few weeks ago on our show, and he's coming back in about 2 weeks. We're going to finish. We have so much to talk about. We're going to finish our conversation in a couple of weeks. But Miss Brothers, thank you for spending some time with us tonight. It has certainly been my honor and pleasure chatting with you.
Well, thank you. But please, I am Beverly. I am not Miss Brothers.
Well, it's going to take a little longer for me to be able to say Beverly. Well, guys, as I try to do each Thursday night, we try to bring to you Commodores. And Beverly Brothers is certainly the very definition of a Vanderbilt Commodore. She has been since 1983 and will continue to serve in that role as the #1 cheerleader for going forward. So thank you again, Beverly, for your time. And gosh, all these, I really wish you'd get in here and see all these comments. There's some awesome comments in here.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for talking me into doing it.
I think you can also nudge your running buddy, JJ, with a little help there too. So thank you, guys. We'll be back again next Thursday at 7 o'clock Central. And until then, continue to be safe. We're coming out of this pandemic slowly but surely. We'll get into, hopefully, I know that Hawkins Field beginning the end of this week is going to have full capacity. So we've got, when we go to Ole Miss. But
we go to Ole Miss and then we come back. Play Kentucky for the final series. Well,
that's going to be an important series. So I hope they fill it up. But guys, continue to be safe, anchor down, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you.